Welcome to Unity Center DC's Sunday morning service. We're so happy that you're all here. We're also very excited. Carole Frampton will be speaking with us today, and she's spoken with us before and has really inspired us. And Leah Morris will be doing the music, and she's sung here before and has always been an inspiration. So I think it's going to be a very exciting morning. We want to welcome you all to our service today. And now, if you would join me in a centering prayer. The Cure for It All by Julia Fehrenbacher. Go gently today. Don't hurry or think about the next thing. Walk with the quiet trees. Can you believe how brave they are, how kind? Model your life after theirs. Blow kisses at yourself in the mirror, especially when you think you've messed up. Forgive yourself for not meeting your unreasonable expectations. You are human. Praise fresh air, clean water, good dogs. Spin something from joy. Open a window, even if it's cold outside. Sit. Close your eyes. Breathe. Allow the river of it all to pulse through eyelashes, fingertips, bare toes. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe until you feel your bigness, until the sun rises in your veins. Breathe until you stop needing anything to be different.
Thank you. Last week, Janice Carl extended to us a beautiful invitation of seeing the earth and becoming conscious co-creators of a new earth. It was an inspiring message. I would like to build upon it today, exploring if and how we can fully respond yes to what feels like the most important invitation we have and will ever receive. To collectively co-create a new earth, we may need to first experience it as a possibility. It is difficult to call forth what we don't know intimately. Call it not from our mind, but from our heart, soul, and every molecule of our body. Personally, a true communion with the earth is not something that I have easy access to yet. I grew up in an intellectual family that valued rational thinking above all, with limited contact with nature. And more generally, we've had such a disconnect for so long. Humankind has now for centuries taken upon itself to own, control, exploit, and abuse the earth. It is not easy to shift to a new relationship. Experiencing, not just intellectually, but knowing from deep within our oneness with the earth. When even among humans, we are losing the art of nurturing and caring for ourselves and one another. It is not an easy shift. So how do we say yes with our full being? How do we enter into that communion? An increasing number of us desire it, but we are many to not really know how to go about it. And our climate change guilt and outrage may actually get in the way. I was going around in circles on this when I came across one of Chloe's old poem on water, which gave me an entry door. And I will come to the poem later, just note the word old. Reading her words made me realize it may be an easy invitation if I broke it into smaller, more accessible elements, starting with the earth with a small e as an element. Earth as the element, not the whole planet. Its upper layer, its richest, most life-giving expression. The dark, most humus so many people during confinement are finding themselves drawn to plunge their hands into. Gardening, even if it is just on a tiny balcony or one tomato plant on a windowsill, but needing to reconnect with its transformative magic. Just writing about it awakens a longing in me, one of lying on the ground, melting into it. When we directly in touch with the soil, we soften, our mind quietens, we finally just listen. The Japanese have fully acknowledged that and practice forest bathing. Living in a particularly crowded urban environment, they feel the need to restore their communion with nature by immersing themselves literally into the forest floor and let the ground work its magic. And now the practice is spreading around the world. We may not be able to regularly immerse ourselves into the soil, but it is recommended we spend at least 30 minutes every day barefoot. Our rubber soles, our cemented pavements, our modern living disconnect us from the magnetic field of the earth. As we lose that connection, we are depleted. We find ourselves increasingly void of our life force. Try it. Take off your shoes every day and you will sleep better. That is how I like to walk my dog in the forest. During the winter, you can also use earthing mats on your mattress under your feet while you work, which will provide a substitute connected to an earth plug. The ground gives energy to those that can plug into it and receive it. This connection recharges us and reminds us we follow the same natural rhythm as all other living creatures. We are born, live our lives, and then die and return to the ground. Wherever our soul may travel to, our bodies get recycled. We melt back into the earth, and personally, that gives me great comfort. I will certainly not want a fancy coffin made up of processed varnished material that takes centuries to decompose and cuts me off from my primary element. I would like to go to what I believe is the future of cemeteries, a first example of which exists in Italy. It's called Capsula Mundi, and each tomb becomes an organic pod from which grows a tree. The result is a sacred forest. But we don't have to wait till we die to reconnect with the earth as an element. My cousin is a big land activist. She supports thousands of young people to go back to farming, many of whom have grown up in cities and have to learn everything about working the land. They simply trust and yield to its calling them. They support each other and create new ways of not just connecting to the land, but also connecting with one another. Their movement is a wonderful example of rediscovering the awe and joy of living with and from the land. Obviously, that is not something that is available or appropriate for us all. We can also simply love a piece of land, pay attention to its call and many gifts right around us. Our own garden, however small it may be, or the park in your neighborhood, to just take its beauty and send it love and receive its contribution back. So let's take a deep breath and close our eyes. I invite you to visualize a piece of land you love. It may be your childhood garden. It may be the park down the street. It may be a land you only met once on holiday, yet the connection was so deep, it has stayed with you ever since. In your mind, you may be sitting or lying down, but your hands are touching the ground. It may be moist, or it may be dusty. It may be soft or prickly. Whatever it is, let it contribute to you. Open yourself to receiving its vitality, its beauty, its inherent abundance. You are made up of the same organic elements. Together you are one. As you breathe in and out, your connection grows. And the ground may be whispering to you, I am here. I am always here. You are always welcome to sit with me so we can be quiet together. We can appreciate one another. And now I will invite you to come back. You don't need to open your eyes, but let's move on to the next element, water. and my daughter Chloe's poem, which she gave me permission to read to you on the express condition that I made it clear it was an old poem of hers, written 2 years ago. Her writing style has much evolved since. I may well have writing style issues I cannot notice. I just know it speaks to me as it reminds us of our connection to water. It is called We Are the Run of Water. And it says all I would like to say much better I ever could. And I will share my speaking fee with her to honor her talent. So here it goes. I like to think that if humanity was fated to live as one element, in one way or another, we'd all be the endless run of water. Some but a creek, small and awaiting their bloom. Others a force of nature, entire oceans rippling beneath their skin. Some of us prefer to live as quiet mist. Others need to be waterfall, loud and beautiful. They make the cliffs shake. Like water, we change over time. We are the pour of rain, the spill of tears. We explore and fall into the deepest of cracks. Sometimes we are gentle flow, serene in our slow trickle. But there are days when we're the strongest of waves, powerful in our uncontrollable rage. As much as we can drown, we are a source of life. Like water, shaping stone over time, we persevere, we kill, we create. There is to me not much to add to these lines. We are watery beings. About 70% of the human body is made up of water, which we most often forget with the great majority of us walking around with varying degrees of dehydration. So the first honoring water as an element is to make sure our body has enough of it. Coincidentally, more than 70% of the earth is covered in water, except that it may not be a coincidence, more of a fractal mirroring. And so I invite you to again close your eyes if they're open and reflect on that a little more. Let us commune with water. Let us bless the water within us. Let us bless it around us. It is said to change its molecular structure to bless it. Who knows? It certainly has been used in every religion as a sacred source of life. And so, as you relax, connect with the element of water. With each breath you take, expand. Expand into the ocean. And yet simultaneously, be the drop. We are the drop, and we are the ocean. Breathe in, breathe out. Be the drop, and be the ocean. Be the drop, and be the ocean. Be the drop, and be the ocean. And now let us move on in our exploration. Let us talk about fire. We are also now largely disconnected from the fire element. We no longer know or teach our children how to start it or rekindle it, which was a constant feature of our ancestors' lives. I remember being horrified when I came to the US, seeing someone pointing a remote control to a chimney to get it going. I still cringe when I hear someone say, as I did the other day on a Zoom call, wait, I'm too hot, let me switch off the fire. And yet, even now back in Europe, when I have a chimney, I find myself finding it easier to have a YouTube version of a clacking fire going on TV non-stop over the Christmas period. So I have no claim of greater authenticity. The hearth had its own goddess named Hestia. Aristotle said that the crackling sound of the fire was her laughter. We may not depend on it so directly for our survival, yet we would fare better if we hadn't stepped so far from it. Sitting around a fire brings such connection. Sitting next to the fire is so soothing. We have forgotten that Hestia was a peaceful goddess. We now mostly associate fire with danger. We may no longer all have a chimney in our homes, but we all have a fire extinguisher. Before the pandemic gripped the whole planet, it was the fires in Australia that did. It was presented as an enormous tragedy, and in many ways it was. 10 million hectares of land torched, and it was feared some habitats may never recover. But locals now report extraordinary signs of renewed life. Turns out some trees need fire to regenerate. The heat opens up the seed pods. It doesn't mean that fires of such magnitude are good. We have many lessons to draw from them, but we can welcome fire as a partner in creation. Fire is part of the cycle of life and death. We have to sometimes burn our world down before we build it anew. Chaos and destruction are included in consciousness. They are not bad or wrong. If we welcome them without judgment or drama, we can look for what new possibility they make space for. Let us reconnect with our inner fire-spitting dragons. Let us be willing to use fire when fire is required. So sit back comfortably. Close your eyes if not already the case. Make friend with the fire. For a moment, imagine a small one that fills you with warmth and peace. Listen to it crackling. And now slowly, have the fire grow in height. It's a bonfire. You take a few steps to protect yourself from the heat, but it fills you with awe. And now you realize that the fire and you are one. It responds to your movement or to your thoughts. Dance with it. Let it fill you with its potency. Dance with it. And now air. Air is part of many spiritual practices. But what about just breathing in our everyday lives? We don't open windows anymore. We live constricted lives where we don't fully use our lung capacity. In healthy people without chronic lung disease, even at maximum exercise intensity, we only use 70% of the possible lung capacity. I find it interesting that the two most recent global paradigm shifting events are connected to breathing. COVID directly affects our ability to breathe. More than 2.5 million people, a fifth of that number in the US, have died asphyxiated in the last 12 months. There are pandemics in every area, but somehow this one feels like the right match for our modern lifestyle. A virus that stops us from breathing. Just as George Floyd died saying, "I cannot breathe," and the foot that wouldn't be lifted. And through his death had us all realize to what extent large portions of our community had very little space to breathe. And that if we were willing to lift restrictions placed on them, we would all breathe so much more deeply and freely. So this is a time that requires conscious breathing, not just as a focused practice once a week or even on a daily basis. An all the time way of being connected to our life force as we breathe. No need to take a huge breath. The idea is not to end up all hyperventilating, but to accompany the in and out of cleansing air into our body. To be in communion with our own respiration. In and out. In and out. Expand your lungs fully. In and out. The fifth element is meant to be space or spirit, depending on your frame of reference. We get a sense of spaciousness when we stop thinking of ourselves as limited to the confinement of our own body. When we expand our consciousness to inhabit fully our infinite being, when we are simultaneously our individual selves and way bigger, our community of loved ones, our village, our earth, and the entire cosmos. In the same way, we are simultaneously the drop and the ocean. We are the Christ within and one with the divine. Christians have communion at the core of their practice. For outsiders, this idea of eating the body of Christ and drinking the blood of Christ may seem quite odd, almost cannibalistic. Yet it is, in my view, a deeply powerful ritual when we can truly live it and be embodied in Christ while also being in communion with all that is. Easter is a reminder of that necessary cycle of death and resurrection, the ultimate invitation to being one with the earth. In my view, the earth can heal itself. It can do that very easily and without our help. The question is, will it have to get rid of us in order to find balance again? We are the ones that need healing as a result of disconnecting from the earth. If we can enter again into communion, and Easter will be a good time to gain greater access to it, say yes, and with that yes, start our co-creation of a new earth. I invite you now to co-create your last meditation with the earth. You can bring in the different elements we have called upon today. Imagine yourself in a forest, or look at our planet from high above. You can let yourself be the water, the peaceful pond, or the thundering torrent. Be the erupting volcano, or be the comforting fire. You can fly as a bird, or feel the thrill of the hunting lion. Be the warrior, and be the nurturer. Be it all. Include it all. My mentor, Dan here, says consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. The earth doesn't judge you, doesn't judge us. Let the earth welcome you whole. Let the earth welcome you home.
And now, if you'll join me in a closing prayer. This is from Peace is Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh. Walk as if you were kissing the earth with your feet. Now is the time for us to take good care of her. Bring your peace and calm to the surface of the earth and share the lesson of love. Walk in the spirit that each step we take makes a flower bloom under our feet. We can do it only if we do not think of the future or the past. If we know that life can only be found here in the present moment. And so it is.